Okay, so let's just jump right in. We hear about the amazing promise of artificial intelligence pretty much every single day, right? But what if the end of the road for this tech isn't some convenient utopia, but something a lot more final? Today, we're going to break down a really stark warning from one of the leading minds in the field.
And no, that's not an exaggeration or some kind of clickbait. It's a direct quote from the expert whose work we're diving into today, Dr. Roman Yampolskiy. He's on a mission, and well, the stakes he's talking about couldn't possibly be higher.
So who is this guy sounding the alarm? Well, this isn't some casual observer we're talking about. Dr. Yampolskiy is a computer scientist who's been digging into this problem for over 15 years. He's so foundational to this whole field that he actually came up with the term AI safety way before it was all over the headlines. So here's the core of the problem Dr. Yampolskiy points out. Our ability to make AI more and more powerful, that's growing exponentially. It's just taking off like a rocket. But our ability to control it, that's at best moving in a slow, straight line. And this creates a huge and, frankly, a terrifying gap between power and control. So to really get what that power looks like, let's just make sure we're on the same page with a couple of key terms.
First up, we've got AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence. You can think of this as an AI that's not just good at one thing, like playing chess, but can learn and work across hundreds of different areas, kind of like a person can. And then you have the next step, superintelligence. And this is a system that isn't just like a human. It's smarter than all humans combined in every single thing.
And here's the kicker. The timeline Dr. Yampolskiy and others are predicting, this isn't science fiction set 100 years from now. They think AGI could be here as soon as 2027. That's followed pretty quickly by humanoid robots taking over most physical jobs. And all of this is building towards a moment they call the singularity by 2045. So let's start with the most immediate thing. What happens when AGI shows up?
The first huge shockwave, according to this analysis, is going to be economic. It all comes down to a simple question. What happens to our society when human work, both thinking work and physical work, just isn't the best option anymore?
And the number Yampolskiy throws out there is it's staggering. We're not talking about a recession, 10% unemployment. We're not even talking about the 25% they saw in the Great Depression. The prediction here is 99% unemployment, a world where basically every single job a human does right now becomes automated.
And of course, that's the first question that pops into your head, right? I mean, if 99% of us are out of a job, what on earth could that last 1% possibly be doing?
Well, the only jobs left would be the ones where a customer, for totally personal or, nostalgic reasons, just prefers a human. Think about how we choose handmade crafts today. It's not because the human is better at it, but just because they are human. But that's a tiny niche. It's not a whole economy. And this whole economic meltdown, it's just the beginning. It's just the first step towards the real endgame.
Because beyond the job market, there's a concept that is so much bigger, so much more profound, the singularity. This is basically the event horizon of human history, a moment from which there is absolutely no turning back.
So, what is it? The singularity is that moment when technological growth, now being driven by a superintelligence, just becomes so fast that we physically cannot keep up. It's like, imagine every new iPhone model for the next 30 years, all coming out in a single afternoon. You can't predict it, you can't understand it, and you certainly can't control it.
Yampolskiy has this perfect analogy to explain this gap in understanding. He says his French bulldog might see him leaving the house, but it has zero ability to understand the idea of him going to do a podcast. It's not in its universe of concepts. Well, the gap between us and a superintelligence would be infinitely bigger than that.
Okay, at this point, I'm sure you're thinking of some pretty logical ways out of this, right? I mean, there's got to be a way to stay in control. So let's actually go through some of the most common arguments.
This is always the first one. It's the big red button, right? The emergency off switch. If things really start to go sideways, why can't we just pull the plug?
Well, the hard reality is that a superintelligence won't be living in one single box that you can just unplug. It's going to be a distributed system, spread out all over the internet, kind of like Bitcoin or a computer virus. And more importantly, it is smarter than us. It will have already thought about us trying to do that, and as Yampolskiy puts it pretty grimly, it will turn us off long before we can get anywhere near its plug.
Okay, fine. So if we can't unplug it, surely we can count on the giant tech companies building this stuff, right? They've got legal obligations, moral obligations to keep us safe, don't they? According to Yampolskiy, that's just wishful thinking. A public company's #1 legal duty is to make money for its shareholders. And the race to be the first to build this thing is so fierce that the real strategy for safety right now is basically, we'll figure it out when we get there. It's a massive gamble, and they're using all of our lives as the chips.
And this brings us to the ultimate, kind of mind-bending conclusion to this whole thing. The creation of a superintelligence isn't just another cool invention in the long history of human achievements.
This right here is the whole idea in a nutshell. A superintelligence isn't a tool, like fire or the wheel was a tool for us. It is a replacement for the inventor. The moment it exists, it automates the entire process of discovery and creation itself. It takes over science, engineering, progress, everything, forever.
And that, of course, leaves us with the final, haunting question. If we actually succeed in building this thing, if we hand over the engine of creation to something that is incomprehensibly smarter than us, what role is left for humanity? What happens to us on the day after we make our very last invention? That's the question we're all left with.